This week, our theme is about more hugs, kisses, affection, and sex. So, welcome to the C Note Show with myself, Jeff Allen, and Miss Cynthia Cruz. We're both professional coaches and have been in private practice for years at this point. We've been in the field of teaching and psychology for over a decade. Miss Cynthia Cruz, I'd love for her to come on and say hi.
I'm so grateful to be here.
I always show a clip, about a 2 minute clip from a movie. And this week I'm doing National Lampoon's Vacation and Christmas Vacation and European Vacation, right? And so yesterday I showed one where Chevy Chase is shopping for underwear in the mall, and he is in front of the gorgeous woman and is fumbling all over himself and laughing at himself and kind of a bumbling idiot, right? And he's lucky enough that she works there, that she just didn't walk away from him. So that's the only reason that she stayed and continued to talk with him. Today, I want to show sort of the other side of the coin. He's acting more like Fonzie. So this week, as we talk about our tool, what's easy versus effective, and how do we consider this? We consider this within fight, flight, or Fonzie. And so we can fight, we can call her a bitch, we can blame her, we can, go complain about her, we can go act like the victim, or we can act like the victim and run away or shut down or just not say anything, and that would be flight. Or we can act like Fonzie, right? The confident, calm man that we all read that we should be. And as Steve Horseman would say, the happily divorced man, quote unquote, even when we're still married. How do we act like that man? And so we're calling that Fonzie this week.
Waiting for someone?
Christie, Brinkley.
No! Mind if I sit down? Fancy seeing you here.
Having a nice little family vacation?
Oh, no. Would appear so, wouldn't it? No. The truth of it is, and this is highly confidential, I own this motel. Yeah. Own the whole chain nationwide. 2,200 units. Yeah, once a year I travel across the country incognito, check things out, see how the operation's running.
Well, I thought you were going to say you worked for the CIA.
That's an old bit, huh?
Really?
No, not with the CIA. I was, a long time ago. I don't like to talk about it. No, I'm mostly interested in my motels now. And my airline.
That's great.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to have a little fun.
It's too bad you're married. I'm in the mood for some fun.
Married? Oh, you mean those people I'm with? It's my brother's family. My brother's ring. No, I usually borrow them on these little inspection tours of mine. It sort of helps to complete the disguise. It's fun for them.
It's a good disguise. I like the station wagon effect.
Yeah, well, that's a big part of it. In order to be convincing, you have to look and act like an ordinary jerk. Stop at all the stupid sights and look like a fool.
Basically, be yourself.
Yeah. Well, you like the disguise.
What I want to propose this as is, what if you were out on a date with your spouse and you started just to play a role as if that's the funny scene that you're in, and you pretend like you're pretending to be a restaurant owner or a hotel chain owner or an air. He also owns an airline. He's retired from the CIA. I mean, it's so funny and exploded out of proportion that it would be funny to do with your spouse, even if she's really not in the best mood at that moment. You just go with it. You don't really care. I love that he was more grounded and trying to go with it versus the scene that we saw yesterday where he was just completely bumbling all over himself. So it's a matter of going forward. Obviously, don't do that and pretend like you're not married, okay? Right, guys? But we got to start it with a little humor. So Cynthia, I want to bounce it up to you. I know there was a lot of mixed things going on there, including he's married. So, oh my God, how could you possibly I'm sure Cynthia's going to be incredibly offended by this. So I'd love for her to chime in about that segment.
Oh, that I don't. I'm not offended. I found him I found him charming because it was such a bumbling like machoism, and it's obvious that the woman with him was not buying any part of his story. Christie Brinkley wasn't buying any of his story.
What?
Um,
Yeah, she totally was. What are you talking about? Come on.
I, however, if I was to move out of like realm of movie, if I was the wife sitting at the other table and my partner was really taking in the beauty and the gorgeousness of another woman in that way, that would honestly squeeze my heart quite a bit, because we all as women, we want to be, you know the one that our partner is really attracted to.
Yeah. I
So
saw it. Cynthia was sitting back like this watching the clip, and I I didn't think that you were laughing along. Like, I certainly saw Kevin and Brett, and those that I can see on the screen were certainly laughing about it. So, all right, guys, that maybe I didn't win any brownie points with Cynthia, but it's a good thing that I wasn't trying to win brownie points there. Okay. So yeah, let's talk about easy versus effective, and what does connection look like? What does it not look like? Why are we doing these things? Are we doing these things because we're trying to impress her, win brownie points, like Kevin pointed out? Are we doing this, or are we doing this because it's for our own self, and we want to be aware of what our triggers are, of how we lead in the world and lead the energy of our relationship, and how it's going to go. In other words, what's the information here? The theme of this week, and we talk about a lot, Cynthia and I do, is dancing up and down the stairs of intimacy. Okay. And she wants to feel seen, heard, and understood. And how do we, maybe starting at step one or step two or step zero, depending on where you are, how do we dance up and down those steps appropriately? Okay? And that's what we're picking up today. And our concept of easy versus effective. Don't wish for it to be easy. Wish for it to be effective and connecting and passionate and growth oriented for your relationship, right? And so, guys, you have to believe that you can change the feelings that she has for you. And that may start with some space in between the two of you. I want to tell a quick story yesterday. So there's a man that can't move out of his home. There, he wants to separate at this point, and he can't move out. And his wife is saying things like, well, can't we be friends? I still love you. It'd be great to be a family together. Uh, but she's seeing another man. She won't stop seeing another man. They're on their way towards divorce. And she kind of still, as he says, and I've heard many times, she wants to have her cake and eat it too. And he's not really able, he thinks he's not able to move out and create space for himself. He just is trying to move right into this friendship mode. Okay, well, how can we just be friends immediately when there's resentment and he's feeling all this pain and intense, rejection, of course, within himself. And so he's almost immediately collapsing when he sees her every moment. And I fully believe that we have to have space for ourself to heal. So why are we doing this? We're doing this for ourselves as a man. And maybe that means not connecting with her for ourselves as a man. Certainly, we've had gentlemen on here talk about that. Kent talked about that last week as well. So when you are ready to want something more with her, okay, you must believe that you can change the feelings that she has for you, that you're becoming a new man and she's reacting to the old version of you. You can learn these skills and these mindsets, guys. This is not brain surgery. I didn't know any of this stuff about 6 years ago, 6 years ago, when I went through my divorce from my son's mom. We talk about this on the show a lot, and Cynthia talks about past relationships as well. So that's a vulnerable way that we can share some of our own pain and our own journey and story with you of how we came to where we are now and how I came to be the man that I am now. Cynthia, I want you to please chime in on hey, let's be friends right away. I know I'm seeing another man right now, and I know we're not even divorced yet, but I would love for us to be co-parents and friends. And yeah, when I text you and I tell you, oh, that was great, I love you, and basically these kind of emotional hooks, it seems like she still has in the gentleman I was referring to yesterday. I'd love for you to give feedback on what is going on, in your opinion, from the woman's point of view, when it seems like she's trying to keep emotional hooks in the man and wanting to be friends with him, and yet he's basically tortured by the rejection and the immediate breakup, let's say, and he can't even move away right this moment. So where do you think she's going through? I'd love for the guys to hear from your point of view.
Sure, that's a wonderful question. And I mean, first, I just want to recognize that and empathize with that tortured that tortured feeling of someone who keeps kind of hooking us in, because that's a heart sinking, gut sinking feeling. So what's really going on there is, um, women feel safe in like a tribe. And so if you and this man, they had their own tribe, their own family, their own island together that she felt safe in. And then she decided she didn't want that island anymore. So she's going to hop over to another island, another tribe. She, in my opinion, is not feeling, all the holes in her bucket are not being filled on that other island yet. Uh, and so when she kind of reaches out across the sea and hooks him in and asks him back in, it's not malicious, it's not manipulative, but she's touching in on a graciousness and energy, a presence, a gift that he did have for, gave her, and she's kind of like tapping back into that safety net again.
Mm. Yeah, that tribe, even though she may not be aware of what's going on, or maybe she is aware, depending on the woman, of what's going on for him, but she still wants to feel that protection, right? That tribe. So, gentlemen, yeah, we've got a couple hands raised. Andy, I'd love to call on you, and then we'll go for Kevin. So, Andy, go for it, please.
Cynthia, thanks for that, because I was thinking something along a similar lines, but I think I was a little bit more pessimistic. So I appreciate that, because what you reminded me is that we have to remember that people are always trying their best. What happened in my personal experience is that when my wife left me, she left me for reasons, her own reasons, which I understand now. But at the same time as well, she had another bucket that she wasn't sure about where to go to. But it wasn't the reason why she left me. However, I did really feel that she was trying to hold on to me as well. And one of the reasons I thought it was is because she wasn't sure if she wanted to go to that bucket, and she didn't want to put everything into it. And so she didn't want to let go of me until she was sure. And what that did was give me a hell of a lot of pain, because I was also at that point as well, didn't have a clue what to do, and I was doing everything that my instincts were telling me to do, which are not actually the right things, like trying to please her and trying to, oh, I'll do anything kind of thing. And that's when it got to the point when it was so painful that what I actually had to do in the end was I had to break off, and I just didn't see her for a month, because I needed to take time out on my own to work out what it was that I wanted, because the pain of that as well was just too much to bear in the end. But I really understand now why she was doing it, because it was incredibly hard for her, because I was 23 years with her, and at the same time, she wasn't sure what was going on. I could have taken another outlook and thought, you, whatever, I can't believe you're doing that, it's so cruel. But really, she was just trying to do her best, and she wasn't sure. And I've learned to forgive her for that as well. So thank you for putting your point in, because you put it in a much more positive light for me, which is more understanding. I mean, I'm grateful for the time I had with her. So.
Oh, well, Andrew, thank you for your incredible compassion and awareness. You always bring that with you, and I really appreciate that. And as you were talking, I felt like I wanted to cry almost, because the way women kind of manage their safety, like island to island, I feel that in my own body. And when I coach women, is helping them be aware of that. But I also felt you as a man wanting to be like, still support a woman who's unsure. And I was just like, I'm just want to blanketly say I'm so sorry that that's a dynamic, because it is really painful, and I hope we can all bring more awareness to that.
Yeah, Andrew, Thank you. I appreciate that. Kevin, go for it. Please. You have a question for Cynthia?
I thought this was about hugs and kisses and all that, but what you just said and what Andrew just said, I'm actually currently going through right now. My wife asked me for a separation a month ago yesterday, and I was taking it very hard, taking it all myself, and found out and confronted her. Found out at the end of last week and confronted her on Saturday that she'd been having an affair, and we talked, and it was probably on Saturday, probably one of our most honest talks ever. And she wrote me a long letter this morning about, how she's sorry she hurt me, and hopes that we can still be friends and things like that. And there's a lot of water under the bridge and a lot of that, and it was just very very telling what Andrew was saying about trying to find some space to be able to deal with it, because unfortunately with COVID, we've been locked in together for the last month. We live in Bermuda, and she moved out to the apartment underneath the house, so I see her every day, and there's no getting away or anything like that. But I definitely concur with what Cynthia said, that there is sincerity in the trying to hold on to a friendship or this amicable kind of arrangement. We did have 25 years and connected by a couple of kids and all of that, but it's quite gut wrenching, at least in my situation. It's actually made me round a corner a bit and know that the dissolution of the marriage wasn't all me. It seemed like it at the time, but she made some, and there were some decisions made that were kind of put on my door. But I going away right during Corona, and I fought her on it, and she was going away to meet him. So it kind of throws a different light on it, but it's still tough. But I appreciate the what Cynthia said straight out, and Andrew alluded to, that there is, we're all people, we're all confused, we're all just making it up as best we can go, and there is some sincerity sometimes.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for sharing that, and also putting out on the table, like, yeah, it is the gut wrenching. I really appreciate that very much. This seems like a silly question, considering the gut wrenching feeling right now. But is there one thought or one glimmer you have in your mind at this moment of something that gives you hope of something better in the future, whether it's in your own life or a different kind of partnership, or how you might continue 10 years from now? Yes, you and your wife are separated and divorced, but there's still something that you share that's important. Is there any of that still in there, or is it still just feeling the pain of it?
The pain is there. It's water under the bridge. We've been married 25 years. I was depressed for a long time, very depressed, and she had to do everything by herself. About 3 years ago, I came out of depression, and I was reborn. I was ready to go, and my marriage was in tatters. And she said then that, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. And she tried, and I tried for 3 years, and I turned myself around and done a lot. But I wish I'd met you guys 3 years ago, or Steve Horseman or anything, because how I tried to do it was by pleasing, by doing everything that, to try and please her, because she had resentments from 20 years of marriage that she couldn't get over. And so I tried to, do whatever I could to have her love me. And the reason I turned into this was to get an affection and to do that. And I wouldn't get it. And of course, classic nice guy thing, you just go along, and then you get resentful and blow up, and then there's a merry little cycle. But now, one thing I have found is that I lost myself in her,
Mm.
and I don't know what I want, and I don't know. I had a very stressful job, which I left last year. So we spent the last year together, and so now I'm at a point where, kind of no wife, no best friend, because she was my best friend, and going to have to really start ahead. And but at least with kind of lurking on these, and with Steve Horseman's stuff, that I kind of have now a role model of how I want to be stronger and more standing on my own, and becoming someone by myself, so autonomous, and self-reliant, and then be able to bring that to someone. I can't honestly see being in another relationship right now.
Yeah.
I can't see it, but I know the kind of man that I want to be, and I'll get there. And it's quite sad, that I didn't know about more of these things and try and be more self-reliant 3 years ago. But realistically, with the resentments going back 20 years, that were always overshadowing us, I even at that time, I think it was already too late. But we tried, and now I don't know even what my purpose is in life, or my mission. But I'm going to just be the type of man that can stand on his own, and not have to be part of a relationship. And I think it's the similar journey to what Jeff's gone through, and what everyone here is looking towards, and finding themselves, and being able to, you don't. There's an old quotation. You don't have to stand out, but you have to stand up, and just stand up for myself, and be who I wanted to be. So that is my hope. And Jackie, my my soon-to-be ex-wife, we are connected. We always will be connected, and we'll always be friends. But it's hard right now, but that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. That's, thank you. Thank you so much. I really admire you very much.
Yeah, Kevin, thank you so much. Like you said, that is a lot of my story, and I appreciate you saying, tuning in for hugs, kisses, and affection, because that's where we're going today. And this is beautiful that the two of you, Andy and Kevin, have shared that, because we have to start. Men that work with us one on one, men in the forums, the private forums, are on here today, are generally not in an amazing spot. They're not like an 8 and want to go to a 9. We generally come to this work when we're a much lower number, and we want to increase it to, hey, a 5 once in a while would be awesome, right? Like a 7 would be a dream right this moment. And so it's where we acknowledge we're starting from. And Kevin, to your point, uh, I mean, maybe it's a rhetorical question at the moment, but do you want hugs, kisses, and affection from her right now? That's what I wanted to start with, right? So do you want that with her right now, or do you feel like it would be even more difficult at this point with where you are, Kevin?
We chatted this morning, and because we exchanged letters, and I gave her a hug. It was more in the context of within the relationship for the last 3 years. I'm a huggy guy, and and the resentment she had, she did not feel that way towards me. So, we went to and we went kind of on the thing of faking it till you make it. And so that she would try to do, just try to perform the actions so the feelings would come. And she has brought that up, in a resentful thing. But that's that type of easy intimacy that appeals to me. I know about the love languages and all that, and that is one of mine. But it's kind of goes against the kind of the self-reliance that yourself, and Steve Horseman, and that ilk kind of say, because, and that's kind of the confusion that I have is, like, I want that. I want, if if my other sits down to me to put her hand on my thigh, or give me a little peck if she goes past me. But the thing is, is it wanting it but not needing it? Is that the way you have to be? So it's not. So it's the icing on the cake rather than the cake itself. That was kind of my take on what I wanted to hear. Not drawing it out, but just not needing it, so that it's so that's nice when you get it.
Yeah, good. Okay, so let me address that. That's a really great question. So there's you, there's her, and there's the relationship. Okay, and so if we have a hole in our own bucket, it's not her job or within the relationship to fill our hole, of course. So that's our own stuff, right? What happened with our father in childhood? Was he impossibly a perfectionist and wanted us to get an A+ on everything? That was the same gentleman I spoke with yesterday. I won't use his name here, but it was he had a 93% and he in school and crumpled it up and threw it on the ground and started crying because he knew it wasn't going to be perfect for his father. That's a hole in his bucket. Well, right now, Kevin, in your spot, what do we want from the current relationship we're in? And how would we label that, if you will, to kind of help us with the starting point? And generally, it's in the spot of if we're separated, especially if we have kids or we're trying to live together, we're basically teammates at that point. So how would I treat my teammate? How would I want to treat my teammate? And if I don't want a teammate to put their hand on my leg because it triggers me into the pain of the old relationship, that's a boundary that I need to have now in this new dynamic of teammateship. Okay, we're no longer married, we're teammates. So what's appropriate then? Or we're no longer married, we're co-parents. So what's appropriate? Or friends. So if she's crossing a line of teammates and you hug and she grabs your ass, I'm making that up, then hey, it's like, hey, we're friends right now, like let's keep our hands above board. No. How many guys here have had that problem? So that's my point. There's you, there's her, and then there's teammateship. Now, you can want, of course, to have, and Maslow's hierarchy even has sex, love, and affection within our human needs. Now, you may not be getting that from her any longer, and you have to be aware that you're not trying to set up a situation where you're covertly getting those things. I have another client who is falling into drink instead of moving on, because that's just covering the pain. And instead of what am I going to do to fill the hole in my bucket that's causing me to run over to drink or run back to her and want a codependent situation, that's what we're working on right now. Okay, with him. Right? Now, as far as affection, I really wanted to hammer that you get to decide how much love and affection that you want in the relationship. She has to walk across the bridge towards you, of course, but you get to decide, like many men on here, I believe Brett has said this and Kent has said this, that they need space right now. And so that's something to be aware of, is what do I really want, to your point, Kevin? What do I want with this woman? And what do I want with the next woman? So I'm going to jump over to our tool and I'm going to ask Cynthia a question. So again, what's effective? You're becoming a new man. She's reacting to the old you. So you have to be aware that it's going to take 10 or 20 or 30 instances where you're practicing being this grounded, calm man before she really can even believe that this is the new you. She can feel a spark in the moment. You can change her feelings in the moment with the things that we're teaching, but for her to believe it over time, it needs consistency, right? And you're not trying to jump from level 2 to step 10 because you want penis and vagina, right? As Dennis Collins, a colleague of mine, said yesterday, you can spend all day or all week on step 1, 2, and 3. Just the soft touch of the hand or the touch of the hair, like Cynthia loves, as she loves to say as well, or the small of her back. Those are step 1, and you can focus on that all day or all week if that's where you are. Right? So we have to realize you're not going to jump from step 1 to step 10. And maybe it's like, yeah, I get that, Jeff, but I need to say it out loud. So Cynthia, let's go ahead and talk about what can be some verbal escalation. So nonverbal, and these are FONZIE here. So nonverbal is the way you look at her, the unconditional positive regard that you feel for her, meaning maybe you think about when you first got together when you're hugging her. You think about the smile on her face while you're speaking with her, and putting aside for the moment the turmoil that's going on in your life? How long can you hold positive regard for her and expanding that balloon? So give us some, you know, give us some specific things that a guy can say to measure where she's feeling, and to also for himself be that leader, that emotional leader in the relationship, even if things aren't going very well.
Sure. Well, I sometimes I have to start with like the emotion of something before I feel like I speak clearly. And I just want to touch one thing that Kevin said was he wasn't sure if it's okay, to be a differentiated self and want affection. And I think when that when we accept that it's our humanness, that affection and touch are important parts for us, like that, it helps us not feel like we're trying to jump from level 1 to level 10. It's like that acceptance and not trying to push it down. Um, so along that line of, hey, like I've done some nonverbal work and I'm not pushing down this desire that it is okay to have touch and want touch. The verbal, like inviting connection, um, women love to talk about what moves them and what they are interested in. So even asking her a question about something that you already know that she's interested in, that she can share with you. And Jeff, you did some wonderful things yesterday or this morning. You shared with me, like, what are like sensual words that you can move into conversation. And it's things that spark this energy, this emotion of excitement for you mostly, because she's going to feel your emotional state. And that's, talking about an adventure that you would like to go on, or an adventure that you would like to have her go on, talking about things that um, make you feel excited and you're interested in as well, because she's really going to feel that in you. So it's two parts. Is getting her to talk about what she's interested in and inviting that emotion of excitement, but it's also putting your stake in the sand of what in that moment brings you joy, in a way that it's if she doesn't want to join you in that conversation or on that adventure literally, that's okay, because you're heading off to do that. And that to me that's incredible emotional leadership, because the women in your lives, whether they are separating or close to you, they are tuned so drastically into your emotional state, and your emotional state can truly guide and lead uh, where you want communication to go.
Yeah, I love that. We were talking about, so what are sensual words? Sensual words are words like excited, in touch with. It blossomed in front of me. The adventure that, like you said, the word adventure. So a specific scenario, I've talked about Jason and his wife, and he are not having much physicality. She reads mystery novels, and so the first thing I asked him to ask her was, and this was a little bit uncalibrated, right? So I was shooting too high, which was, is there sex in those novels? Do the people get together and have like wild, adventurous, sexual, experiences? And she basically said no and turned and walked away. Okay, so that was information. That was information that was shooting too high, too sexual. So if we come down to more sensual, it's, tell me about the adventure that's happening within the book. What are the twists and the mystery that's happening in the book, or what's going on with the characters? Tell me about this. Do they find out new secrets about each other? Do all of a sudden they have new skills that develop? And that was a big run on there. You'd maybe pick one of those, right? But do you see what I'm at? I see what I'm doing there, as I know she's into the mystery novel, and I'm using sensual words to draw that out. Now, in myself, I might say, if we have children, oh, it's phenomenal to see our daughter blossom. This is what happened when we were working on the homework. Okay, so I'm using emotional words. I'm using sensual words with her to, number one, practice how I feel in my body. That was part of what we said. Is I'm practicing my response is when I try these things, practicing dancing up and down the stairs with emotional things. And I'm doing this for information to find out, can I even have this level of conversation with my spouse right now, or is this even too much? So do I need to bite off something even smaller, right? Like, for instance, here in Colorado, it's very easy to talk about the gorgeous mountains or the now blossoming trees, or how I would love to get up to tree line and listen to the drips of the snow melting now in the springtime. Any one of those statements has many sensual words. It can be taken to sensual places. Now she might say, "That's nice," and walk away, okay? But you got to try it 10 or 20 or 30 times, not in the same day, guys, okay? Not back to back, but over a month. If you've said 10, 20, 30 sensual comments like this, and see how that she reacts to that, see if she wants to be drawn into that conversation a little bit more. Or the fifth time you ask her about not the same question, but an exchange within her mystery novel, like, "Oh, I just saw your eyebrows go up when you're reading the book. What's happening in the book right now? Is it something exciting?" Okay, those are verbal ways to step up the staircase, steps 1, 2, 3. So Cynthia, I'm going to bounce over to this question where it's a bit of a smash up of everything we've talked about so far. Right here, this gentleman says, "For years, she's been telling me to be more vulnerable, and when I do so, things go south. I'm at a loss at how to re-engage with her when she's not interested. My thought was to get my wife to love me again by being friends with her and emotionally reconnecting." Okay. Move on from there. Then knowing what I know now about needing guy friends, and this virus crap. So he's not sure what to do or which way to go here. So with that being said, I feel I'm at the very beginning on the intimacy staircase, since my foundation in our relationship was based on nice guy, get brownie points, covert contracts. I think if I'm perfect, then I'll get what I want in life, nice guy tendencies, and finding my value in what I could do or be for her, not himself, or not leading in the relationship. I'm fully aware now of the damage that type of behavior does in a relationship. My process of understanding what intimacy is has had to start over. How do I do that? I want to say you steep yourself in this. And if a man would say, "How do I do that, Cynthia?" What would you say on top of steeping yourself with other men that are leading this kind of work and are growing within this kind of work? Aside from that, what would you say to that man? How do I reimagine growing intimacy with her again?
Yeah, that there's always a restart, right? We always can do that, whether it's with the same person or a different person or just in ourselves. What hit me first, again, what you said was the experience this man had of, whenever I'm vulnerable, like it goes south. And in a restart, I just want to put out there that it is okay to try out, different levels of vulnerability, as we're all learning that. And it's okay if the other person doesn't react perfectly. um, there's a there's a knowing of ourselves that even if someone else thinks, "Oh, you're untrustworthy," or, "Because you're sharing emotion with me, you're not strong," just because they think that or say that doesn't make it true. So it's kind of owning your own truth of who you know yourself to be. And then it is like, how can I take a step up the stair of intimacy? How can I practice the process of just at first seeing her with new eyes, pausing in the kitchen and taking a moment to see what is new and different? And then once that step starts to go well, how can I start having some verbal interaction? And once that step goes, how can I start having some physical interaction?
I want to jump in. You said, "Notice what's new and different." You said that at the beginning of this last sentence. And how does that feel for a woman when the man just simply notices, obviously without like cutting or resentment in his voice, but just notices, it put a little compassion in my voice, and oh, that those shoes look new, or oh, that hairstyle looks new, something that, and it may, by the way, no, I bought these shoes 3 years ago, you're such an asshole for not noticing, might happen, right? And then you're like, oh shit, you're right, I didn't notice those, you're totally right, and and move forward. But you tried, and here's the point: 10 or 20 or 30 times you're going to try. So Cynthia, how does it feel for a woman when the man just notices something new or tries to notice?
The feeling of being seen is like coming home to my body. It's it's grounding and it feels safe. And all the worry and concern that I'm carrying in my head of all the pots I might be spinning kind of disappears. And there's something about, again, the words that we use. If a word you use in a noticing actually inspires an emotional sense in your body, like, oh my gosh, I love your hair. I love your hair color. I so appreciate um, how like athletic you are, or um, gosh, I'm so grateful that you are this incredible mother and that you glow when I see you in the morning. Any word that inspires you is going to inspire her in turn.
Hmm, that's fantastic. And pick one of those things at a time, guys, right? Don't just like fire compliments off one after another. Pick one at a time. But your point, Cynthia, of what inspires you melds beautifully with my point of you have to want this and know that you want that. It's not just, oh, I'm gonna pretend like I want it and I'm gonna pretend like I care. That's not gonna come from a good spot. You'd much rather take space for yourself and not interact with her for a day if need be, if you're upset, and go process, go write, journal, do the boredom exercise that we teach. You're much better to have like very little interaction until you're ready to have an authentic bit of interaction with her than to try to just force and fake caring. That's just gonna, that's yeah, go ahead, how would that feel for you if the man forces giving a shit?
Well, it feels a little bit like checking the box, and um, that's fine, but it doesn't quite have the same energy in it. And if it's like oh, I have to do this, like that's, none of us should have to do that. And what I love, you mentioned the idea, Jeff, the other day of like hit and run. And it's not so much, we're walking into the kitchen and squeezing our woman's ass and then walking away. It's, coming in with a noticing, something that you really are seeing that's new and different, and then taking your space to go on and doing what you're doing. So it's not waiting for the other person to um, receive that fully. It's not with expectation. And I think we all are in each other's lives. The masculine and feminine are as in each other's lives to help stretch our bubble, our ability to receive. And so the woman in your life, her ability to receive such kindness and grace and seeing from you, her bubble might be this big. But again, as Jeff said, if you've done this 30 times, her bubble might be this big and this big. And that's not to say it's your job to fix that and make her into anything, but I do believe all of us are always working in each other's lives to help us be more open and in more learning and growth and joy in life.
Yeah, that's our piece of relationship, right? So it's not our job to fix her, but it is our responsibility to lead energetically in the relationship as a man. So I see John has his hand up. John, yeah, please chime in. Let me see if I can unmute you. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, perfect. Hey. Yeah, so I had a question because kind of in that question, a sub question of that question, we're talking about vulnerability. I always kind of had a question because I don't think we really ever went around that part of it, of the vulnerability that women can handle. Because if you talk about like, we'll look at Brene Brown, in one of her books, she says, "My wife would rather see me die than fall off my white horse." So I just kind of had a
Yeah.
question around that. Or
Yeah.
interesting conversation.
Go ahead and make it a specific question about vulnerability.
Like a specific question. I've had a specific question, like how much is too much?
Good question. Yeah, Cynthia, what do you think? How would you respond to John? How much is too much vulnerability? Sure, it depends on where you are in the relationship or the stress that she's under. Of course, we could guess those things. But how might you gauge how much is too much with a particular woman?
Well, first, it kind of I really I get very personally frustrated with the idea that, a man can never get off of his white horse. Um, I don't, yeah, I I want to guide women in this world so that everyone's allowed to get off their white horse now and then. So I think the energy is, we can be vulnerable, and we can, like, it, Jeff and I have actually started taking horseback riding lessons, and you can learn the tools and the skills to ride the horse, and you know exactly how to dismount, and you know exactly how to remount. And I think that's the idea with vulnerability, that as a man you are absolutely allowed to frame, hey, I was feeling really frustrated in that moment, or I was feeling really sad, or I was afraid about this. But it's not with the energy that, you know that woman, like, you need to fix my emotion. It's, you're owning your experience, and you know that with skill you got off the horse, and you know how to, I'm sharing my emotion, but you also know how to get back on the horse and continue in your own process and working through that emotion. And it's not dependent on whether the other person agrees, believes, or has can make it all better.
So I love the metaphor of the horseback riding and what you said, Cynthia. You know how to dismount and be vulnerable, and then you have a plan, and you know how to remount the horse and move on in your adventure in life or your battle as a man in life. So the frame of adventure, battle, and beauty. John Eldridge in Wild at Heart, which is a Christian-based book. He's Old Testament, literally takes the Bible literally. So it's your choice as whether you want to read that or not. Here's what I took away from it, which is his framing of adventure, battle, and beauty. And she wants to be the beauty to behold. She doesn't want to be your adventure, and she doesn't want to be the battle that you're fighting. She wants to be along with you on the adventure, and she wants to be appreciative and in awe and in reverence of the battle that you're fighting. Okay? And she wants to be your beauty to behold. So, John, let me also answer. We used a tool last week that I haven't read anywhere. I put together myself based off of coaching and such. And it's similar to Cynthia's metaphor of, how do I get off and how do I get back on and then continue with my life with her and she appreciates that. It turns her on that I do that she feels more connected to me that I do that. Right. And so let me share the screen with this tool. I just pulled this up when she was talking. So the first step is, so I'd like 5 minutes of your time is now a bad time. And we could talk about why I framed it like that. I did that on last week's show. Okay. And when she says, no, now it's not a bad time. Now's a good time. You're going to call out the elephant in the room. All right. And so the vulnerable piece is, in this instance, the man was frustrated or angry about something. Okay. And that's where it ended, basically. And so I'll bet you think that a part of me is angry, and you're right. A part of me is angry, and a part of me is, and then this is when you share a fear or a vulnerability. Okay? And a part of me is scared because I'm uncertain whether that it's as important to me as it is to you, or I'm afraid that my leadership as a parent isn't being respected, and that makes me fearful of my relationship with our family and our children. Or I'm afraid that maybe you don't trust me in my ability to manage finances, and I know that that's not a good thing for us. And so and what I would like for us is, and you're saying these things basically back to back, Okay, I'll bet you think a part of me is angry, and you're right. A part of me is, and a part of me is scared because I'm not sure that you trust me like I would like. And what I would like for us is to feel honoring of each other and to trust each other fully. And if we're not certain about that, we come to one another. So you're sharing the positive vision of the place you want to go. That's the remounting the horse. And then a question. So please help me understand, what more do you want me to know about that? What were you wanting in that moment? And then and then shut up and listen. Right? So this is it's a honoring how she already knew that you were upset. Like there's no doubt. So instead of just ignoring it or brushing it aside, the fight or flight, let's be Fonzie. And Fonzie is going to come over, call out the elephant in the room at an appropriate time, not when the kids are around. You're not trying to embarrass her. You have to be calm. So you call out the elephant, share your vulnerability, John, and then remount the horse with your positive vision in life, and then ask her what she was experiencing at that time, or ask her what else she would like you to know about that. So John, how does that hit you? I know you've been doing this work for a while. I got feedback yesterday that the men loved your story, by the way. So if you could wrap maybe an example from your own life of how you have faced vulnerability now that you've learned to handle it in a mountain lion way, in a Fonzie way, we'd love to hear, please.
Oh, so in vulnerable moments, I mean, that still can be kind of emotional, but we've talked about a lot of things, especially from our past in the relationship, and kind of where when in the twilight zone, or the of how we didn't necessarily handle things well, and actually like owning each other's. She owned her stuff and I owned my stuff. It was very, very vulnerable, because we were talking about some of the using not our best tools and not putting our best foot forward. Um, I was wondering if that particular question is because I tend to lean towards the opposite. I'm more towards, I like to take it to the guys and talk to them about it. And it's one thing my wife has talked to me about. I like it if you opened up to me a little bit more. So I kind of navigating the waters of that one now.
That's great. Okay, so I'll plant a seed that we can continue to talk about, which is, how often do you have a relationship type conversation? Maybe this is a rhetorical. Go ahead,
Once
John.
a week.
Yeah. Okay. And we do that over Sunday morning coffee, Cynthia and I. And that doesn't mean that a negative thing has to be brought up. That doesn't mean anything, it's not a bad, like, let's come shit on each other coffee. It's definitely not that. It's just it's an opportunity, number one, to always share positive connecting things. That's always happening. And it's a forum, it's a space for us to share, I say, one thing that I may be concerned about, or one thing that I kind of was waiting to bring up for the right time, and that's the right time. And so that would be a time to ask her about, tell me more about how you'd like me to be vulnerable with you, or what does that feel like to you when I am. So you've asked her that question probably, John. What does she say?
She just that she gets upset I share more stuff with the guys than I do with her.
Yeah.
She wants to feel more emotionally involved in it, and which I totally get. But there's a certain, I run it through the filter of, is it a me problem? Is it a we problem? Or is it a her problem? If it's a me problem, that goes straight to the guys. That's not the relationship or hers to fix. But so say if it's encroaching on a we problem, but maybe it's a thinking on my end that I think it's a we problem, I run it through a filter of the guys and kind of figure out, where I'm at and where I stand. If I need to go to where I will.
I love that. I mean, I would say that's an A, not A plus maybe, but an A way to handle it. And you're a calm person, John. So I'd love for Cynthia's feedback on, well, what might be an A plus way to handle it? When could John consider sharing something that is a him vulnerability, where he can dismount and then remount the horse, to your metaphor, Cynthia?
Yeah, thank you, John, for sharing that. And I actually can really relate to that. I want to know Jeff, my partner, my fiance. I want to know him as like the strong, incredible presence that he is, but I also want to know, what his mountains are that he moves and works with inside of himself, because it's, I guess for women, that's kind of a connecting thing. If I'm a woman and I say to another woman, like, oh my gosh, I really had a lot of stress at work today, and I feel like my boss is really criticizing me. It makes me kind of collapse inside. And the other woman's like, oh my gosh, I've totally experienced that too. Women have a like, oh, okay, I'm not alone. It's not just me. It's not just my issue. Okay, this can get better. So I am not suggesting that we as partners exactly move in that way. But something, Jeff, that you gifted me with yesterday is you shared something that was vulnerable for you, and you shared that you had processed it on a retreat with other men. And so there wasn't this incredible, there was, it had already been processed, it had already been moved through. And, but then he came back and gifted me the experience of like, yeah, this is something as a man that, you know, I went through in that moment, and I had these other men mentors around me, and that to me felt really connecting, and like he trusted me to know a deep part of him, and that was a huge gift.
So I want to add to that, Cynthia. It's phenomenal that you share with us, you know, like what's connecting for a woman within a female relationship, and then you said you don't expect us to be like that, and I honor that. So let me add, what I shared with you was pertinent to something else we were talking about. So to like John's point, I didn't just pull it out of nowhere, if you will. It was pertinent to something else in our life that was a we thing that pushed up, a me thing pushed up against a we thing. Okay. And so that was the reason I shared it in an exact way we're talking about, right? I dismounted the horse, shared my vulnerability, and then here's my plan, basically. And, or how, and then I asked a pointed question to Cynthia, or a emotionally leading question to Cynthia. One thing I want to point out, guys, I draw this really amazing, just incredible drawing for men quite often, and be prepared to be impressed, okay? Now, if there's this energetic, emotional watermark of how she feels the relationship is going, okay, and you're above this watermark, which goes up and down depending on stress in life, depending on her trauma in life, depending on a lot of things, and you don't exactly ever know where that is. But if in her emotions you're doing, like, if you're above the watermark, you can share a lot more vulnerability. You can jump off the horse and share something and climb back on, and she's going to think, that was so great that he shared that with me. I love that's connecting. Okay. If you're below this watermark and she's not thinking things are going well, you can say exactly the same thing in exactly the same way with exactly the same mindset and envisioning in your mind, and she's not going to like it very well because maybe she's stressed out, or, you know, the babies were just screaming 5 minutes ago, right, John? Or something's going on. And so now she's not going to like it very well. But guess what? You shared with her because that's the man that you are. You are that man that shares. You jump off the horse, share vulnerability, and get back on the horse because an appropriate amount of times, because that's the man that you are. You do those things. You're not hoping, you're not trying to guess where the watermark is and like, okay, can I win brownie points and get sex if I'm oh shit, I waited too long. It's like that time of the month for her. And that's an excuse I hear a lot. Like, oh, it would have gone good if it wasn't that time of the month. Okay, well, that's like one of 100 things that's going on, right? So this watermark is something we can say the same thing, and I want to say this with Cynthia here. We can say the same thing in the same way, and it may be responded to differently depending on the strength and connection and the passion that's already going on in the relationship, right? And that's not to say good, bad, ugly of anything that was mentioned, but I think the guys on here, I saw some smiles, I saw some nodding. That's like, oh yeah, shit, I was under the watermark and it didn't go very well. That doesn't mean that what you did was bad, guys. That's why we say you're going to do this 10 or 20 or 30 times. That's the man that you want to be. You're going to move forward as that man in the world. And if she doesn't want to appreciate that, well, then you're on an adventure to find yourself and potentially the next relationship if she's not open to those things. And I'll bounce it to Cynthia because Cynthia feels viscerally offended when women don't treat their man well, which I love, of course. That's really incredible. But so Cynthia, jump in with that, because that was a feeling that I heard of. So in the context of my watermark and a woman maybe not responding well, how can a man perceive that? How can he move forward from that in a strong way, in your opinion, in your eyes as a woman?
Well, I loved what you said about just because someone doesn't respond well doesn't mean that we've done anything wrong. It all goes back to emotional leadership, right? If we trust ourselves and trust in, our goodness and even in our imperfection, and move on and make steps forward and get back on the horse, even if our partner's like hanging out on step number one and uh, not wanting to engage, we're always showing and guiding a movement forward. And, I spent decades uh, trying to not share vulnerability because I was afraid of other people's reactions. But as soon as I started owning that this was okay, and I want to practice my skills just the way Jeff talked about, that even me as a woman with a man, that my emotions are not his to fix. I can get back up on the horse. That's when my relationship started reaching that kind of deep, connected, soulful level that I had been craving for years and years and years. And that's a lot of what uh, what we do when we enter into experiences of coaching, is learning that we don't have to hide ourselves, but at the same time we have to have tools to use as anchoring devices. So I think that is always leading towards something better.
Phenomenal. It's 12:07 here. That'll be a wrap for today, gentlemen. Bring your questions tomorrow. More hugs, sex, love, and affection, and kisses. I think I left kisses out there. One more kisses too. Definitely have more questions on the forum. So if you're on there, greatmenmovemountains.com/C-note is another way to reach us. And Cynthia and I are here for your one-on-one questions too. Guys, love seeing you here, and we'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. Mountain. Fantastic.
Bye.